I've got 6 stories in front of me tonight, and if somebody had sent me these without dates, names, or documents, I probably would have thrown half of them out. Meat falling from a clear sky. A town hunting somebody who may have been pumping gas into people's bedrooms. Cars dying on empty Texas roads while strange lights appeared nearby. A police officer walking up on something in the New Mexico desert that the Air Force couldn't explain. And finally, the United States military opening fire over one of its own largest cities. That last one happened. They fired more than 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds. And when the sun came up, there was no enemy airplane to show for it. That's the kind of night we're dealing with. These aren't 6 conspiracy theories I found online. The events happened. The argument begins with what caused them. Are you ready? Lock your doors. Put your headphones on. Pull your blanket tight. Because tonight, some of the strangest stories in America aren't coming from ghost books. They're coming from newspapers, police departments, courtrooms, and government files. This is Marked Terror. A woman named Olympia Crouch was outside near her home. The sky wasn't doing anything particularly strange. No tornado, no violent thunderstorm, no aircraft, obviously. Then something started falling. At first, small pieces, then more. Across part of the Crouch property, pieces of what appeared to be animal flesh began coming down from above. I know how that sounds. I checked. Then I checked again. The event made contemporary newspapers. Scientific and medical publications discussed samples. The Library of Congress still teaches the case using 19th century sources. This actually happened. America remembers it as the Kentucky meat shower, and the closer you get to the original reports, the stranger the whole afternoon becomes. The material reportedly covered a large area. Some pieces were small, others were noticeably larger. People collected samples. At least a couple of men reportedly decided that the smartest way to identify mysterious material falling from the sky was to taste it. 19th century science was a little different. They thought it resembled mutton or venison. Other samples were eventually examined under microscopes, and that's where this stopped being just a weird newspaper story. Researchers reported animal tissue, muscle, lung tissue, cartilage. So something biological really appears to have landed on that Kentucky property. The question was how it got into the sky. One early explanation blamed nostoc, a gelatinous cyanobacterium that can suddenly swell after rain and look like something has fallen from above. That explanation had a problem. Some examined material appeared to be actual animal tissue. Another theory involved vultures. And weirdly enough, that one makes much more sense. Vultures can regurgitate food when frightened or when they need to lighten themselves quickly in flight. One bird does it, others in the flock may follow. If a group of vultures had recently fed and then collectively emptied their stomachs while flying over the Crouch farm, well, there's your meat shower. Disgusting, but natural. And it's still one of the leading explanations. I can accept it. Actually, I probably do. But look at what we're accepting. A flock of vultures may have flown over a Kentucky farm in 1876 and accidentally produced a shower of partially digested animal tissue large enough to end up in newspapers and scientific journals. That's the sensible explanation. We're starting there. And things are about to get considerably worse. Because 21 years later, a woman in West Virginia walked into the legal system with a story no prosecutor should have wanted anywhere near a murder trial. She said her dead daughter came back and told her who killed her. Her name was Elva Zona Heister Shue. Most people called her Zona. She'd recently married a blacksmith named Edward Shue. The marriage didn't last long. Zona was found dead inside her home. At first, there wasn't going to be a murder case. Her death was treated as natural. Edward reportedly behaved strangely around the body. He stayed close. He resisted people examining her neck and head. But grief makes people act strangely. That alone proves nothing. Then Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heister, started talking. She believed Edward had killed her daughter. And she claimed she knew because Zona had told her. Not while she was alive. Afterward. Mary said her daughter's spirit appeared to her repeatedly over several nights. According to her story, Zona described an argument with Edward. then told her mother that he had broken her neck. You can believe that part or not. It doesn't really matter yet, because Mary did something more important than simply tell a ghost story. She went to the authorities. She pushed for another investigation. Zona's body was exhumed, doctors examined her again, and the results changed the case. Her neck was broken. There were injuries that did not support the original assumption of a natural death. Now Edward Shue had a problem, a very real one. He was charged with murdering his wife. And this is the part that turns an Appalachian ghost story into one of the strangest courtroom episodes in American folklore. Mary Heaster testified. Edward's defense apparently thought her supernatural story would destroy her credibility. So during cross-examination, they questioned her about the supposed visits from Zona. They let the ghost into the courtroom. Mary didn't back down. She described what she believed had happened, and the testimony became part of the trial record. To be absolutely clear, a jury did not simply hear a ghost said he did it and send a man to prison. There was physical evidence. There was the autopsy. There was Edward's behavior. There were circumstances prosecutors could actually use. But the ghost story was discussed in that courtroom, and Edward Shue was convicted of murder. He went to the West Virginia State Penitentiary. He died there years later. Today, West Virginia even has a historical marker commemorating the Greenbrier ghost. I've heard this case sold as the only murder solved by a ghost. That's a great headline. It's also too clean. Mary already suspected Edward. Her determination helped push authorities to re-examine Zona. The second examination produced real evidence. That's what mattered legally. But I can't get rid of one question. Why was Mary so certain? A mother's suspicion? Something she'd noticed before Zona died? Something somebody told her that was later forgotten? Or did she experience something she genuinely interpreted as her daughter returning? We can't reconstruct that part. We weren't standing in Mary's bedroom in 1897. All we know is what she said. Her daughter's spirit came 4 times. She listened. Authorities eventually listened to Mary. And a dead woman's broken neck turned a supposed natural death into a murder case. That's strange enough for me. But at least the Greenbrier case had one terrified mother. The next incident had an entire town. America was at war. Men from town were overseas. Factories were running. People were listening to news reports every day about things happening thousands of miles away, and then families in Mattoon started reporting something happening inside their own homes. It began at night. An unusual odor, sweet, chemical, sometimes described as resembling flowers. Then physical symptoms, nausea, weakness, dizziness, temporary difficulty moving. The first stories were unsettling. Then another family reported something similar. Then another. Before long, people in Mattoon thought somebody was moving through their neighborhoods after dark and releasing gas into houses. Newspapers gave the unknown person different names. The anesthetic prowler, the mad anesthetist. The one that survived was simpler, the mad gasser of Mattoon. And the town reacted like the attacker was real. Police increased patrols. Citizens stayed awake at night watching streets and yards. State and federal authorities were brought in to help. People reported suspicious figures, footprints, someone near windows. A woman named Mrs. Kearney became associated with one of the earliest famous incidents after her family reported a strange odor in their home and symptoms following it. Then reports accelerated. Now think about what Mattoon would have felt like at night. No neighborhood security cameras, no Ring doorbells, no phones capable of recording everything. You smell something you don't recognize. Your legs suddenly feel weak. Your neighbor says somebody was outside their window yesterday. The newspaper says other families are reporting the same thing. Good luck sleeping. Police kept looking. Nobody caught a gasser. Nobody found the secret chemical weapon. No masked prowler was dragged into the station. Eventually, Mattoon's police chief, C.E. Cole, publicly argued that there was no attacker. One explanation centered on industrial fumes from a local war-related facility being carried into residential areas by shifting winds. Other investigators and later researchers looked at mass psychogenic illness, what people used to call mass hysteria. That phrase can sound insulting. It shouldn't. Fear can produce real physical symptoms. Expectation affects perception. One frightening report can make thousands of people pay attention to sensations and odors they normally would have ignored. And Mattoon was living through wartime anxiety. All of that makes sense. But here's why I wouldn't laugh at the people who reported it. Imagine you don't know the explanation. You're living it in real time. Somebody in your family is suddenly sick. Other families are calling police. Authorities are patrolling the streets. Nobody has caught whoever is supposedly doing it. You don't get the benefit of reading the psychological explanation 80 years later. You just know something smells wrong. And everybody keeps telling you there's a man outside. For roughly 2 weeks, that fear was real. Eastern Illinois University still preserves maps, newspaper reports, victim lists, and information about the investigation. There is an archive because Mattoon didn't invent the episode later. It happened to the town. Whether the attacker happened, that's another question. And we're about to cross a line now, because from this point forward, we're not dealing with a 19th century ghost or a mysterious smell. We're entering the era of police radio, military intelligence, and official files involving objects people said they actually saw. The next night lasted only a few hours, but during those hours, car after car began failing on lonely Texas roads. Population around 10,000. Flat country west of Lubbock. Long roads through dark farmland. Late that Saturday night, a man named Pedro Socorro was driving with Joe Salaz. Socorro later said they saw a blue flash near the road. Then something approached. According to his account, the truck's engine stopped. The lights went out. Socorro got out. He said the object passed near the vehicle with a tremendous sound and rush of wind. Then it moved away. The truck started again. Socorro called the Levelland police. Officer A.J. Fowler was working the desk. He apparently wasn't impressed. One strange caller late at night? You can understand why. Then the phone rang again. Another motorist. Different location. A brightly illuminated object near the road. The car died. The object left. The car started again. Then another call. And another. This is where Levelland gets under my skin, because the individual details change, but the central pattern keeps coming back. Bright object, road. Vehicle failure. Object leaves. Vehicle works again. A Texas Tech student named Newell Wright later gave investigators a detailed account. He was driving east of Levelland after midnight when the electrical system in his car began acting strangely. The engine started sputtering. His ammeter fluctuated. The vehicle stopped. The headlights dimmed and went out. Wright got out to check the car. Then he noticed something on the road ahead. He described a large oval object, flat along the bottom, light-colored, glowing. After several minutes, according to Wright, it rose rapidly and disappeared. Then his car worked again. The police weren't sitting at the station laughing anymore. Sheriff Weir Clem went out. Other law enforcement officers searched the roads. Fire Chief Ray Jones became involved. Clem himself reported seeing a brilliant light in the distance. Jones also reported a strange light, along with his vehicle briefly sputtering. By the end of the night, the police desk had received numerous UFO-related reports. Project Blue Book investigated. This wasn't filed away as somebody calling a radio show. The United States Air Force had paperwork on Levelland. And their explanation? Weather-related electrical phenomena became central to the official interpretation. Ball lightning has often been associated with the explanation. There's nothing ridiculous about considering atmospheric electricity. Ball lightning is an unusual, real phenomenon. Electrical storms can do strange things. Except critics immediately pointed to problems with applying that explanation neatly to every report. Not every witness described the same weather. Not every vehicle problem was identical. Some witnesses described objects much more structured than a ball of light. And this is where people usually make a mistake. They jump from, the Air Force explanation has problems, straight to, therefore extraterrestrial spacecraft. No, there's an enormous gap between those sentences. I don't know what happened around Levelland. I know what people reported. I know the reports were numerous enough to send police onto the roads. And I know the case entered Project Blue Book. That's already extraordinary. Picture Fowler at the police desk. First caller sounds crazy. Fine. Second caller gets your attention. Third one? Now you're writing things down. At some point that night, the question inside that station changed. It stopped being, "What's wrong with these people?" and became, "What the hell are they all seeing?" The United States Air Force investigated thousands of reports during the Project Blue Book years. Most eventually received conventional explanations, some didn't. And 5 years after Levelland, one of the Air Force's own investigators encountered a case he couldn't put away. Not a dozen people scattered across Texas. One police officer, broad daylight, close range, marks on the ground, burned vegetation, and an object that, according to him, was sitting there when he arrived. Police officer Lonnie Zamora was chasing a speeding vehicle outside Socorro when something interrupted the pursuit. A roar, then a flame rising in the distance. Zamora thought something might have exploded near a dynamite storage area. That explanation made sense, so he abandoned the traffic chase and went to investigate. The terrain was rough. He drove along a gravel road, tried climbing a hill. His patrol car struggled. Eventually, he reached a position where he could see into an arroyo. There was something down there. At first, Zamora thought he might be looking at an overturned car. Then he noticed two small figures near it, human-shaped. At that distance, he couldn't identify them clearly. He continued closer, and what looked like a crashed automobile stopped looking like one. Zamora described a smooth, oval object, white or aluminum-colored, about the size of a car. He could see no normal wings, no obvious engine, no windows. He reported a strange red marking on the side. Then the thing made a sound, loud, deep, the kind of sound that convinced Zamora he needed to get away from it. He ran. At one point, he hit part of his patrol car and fell. Then he looked back. The object was rising. According to Zamora, flame appeared underneath it. It climbed 20 or 25 feet. Then the roaring stopped, and the object moved away low across the desert. Fast. It cleared a dynamite shack and continued toward the mountains. Then it was gone. If this ended with Lonnie Zamora standing alone in the desert, we'd have one police officer's story. Interesting. Not enough. But somebody else arrived soon afterward. Police Sergeant Sam Chavez came to the area. Investigators followed. They found depressions in the ground where Zamora believed the object's supports had rested. There was vegetation that appeared burned. The site was examined. Radiation tests were performed. Soil was tested. Burned vegetation was analyzed. The FBI received information about the case. The Air Force investigated through Project Blue Book. And this next detail matters. Their tests did not reveal alien metal. No unknown chemical propellant. No mysterious radiation. The laboratory findings were basically negative. Normally, that helps close a case. Here, it didn't. Hector Quintanilla was the Air Force officer running Project Blue Book. He was not some UFO evangelist. Quite the opposite. His job was to investigate these reports and find explanations. And years later, discussing Socorro, Quintanilla wrote that essentially everything humanly possible to verify had been checked. He considered Zamora trustworthy, yet he couldn't identify what Zamora had encountered. The CIA today describes the Socorro sighting while discussing the history of government UFO investigations and notes that Quintanilla regarded it as one of the best documented cases on record. That sentence is why Socorro is still around. Not because the government admitted aliens landed in New Mexico. It didn't. The interesting part is that they tried to solve it and couldn't. There's a difference between "we proved this was extraterrestrial" and "we couldn't determine what caused the report." Socorro belongs firmly in the second category, and somehow that bothers me more, because Lonnie Zamora wasn't describing a little dot crossing the night sky. He said he got close enough to think it was a wrecked vehicle. He saw something on the ground. He saw it leave. Investigators arrived and documented physical disturbances at the site. No explanation ever became strong enough to end the case. And if our final event involved one policeman and one object, I could end the video there. But we're going backward 22 years, to a night when nobody had to convince Los Angeles that something was happening overhead. The sirens were already screaming. Searchlights were crossing the sky. The city went dark, and the army opened fire. America had been at war for less than 3 months. Pearl Harbor was still fresh. The West Coast was terrified of attack, and that fear wasn't completely irrational. On February 23rd, a Japanese submarine surfaced off California and shelled the Elwood oil field near Santa Barbara. The damage was limited. Psychologically, different story. An enemy submarine had just fired on California. 24 hours later, Los Angeles was ready for anything. Then came the night of February 24th into the morning of February 25th. Military radar detected something approaching. Accounts and interpretations differ over exactly what was being tracked and when. Alerts went out. Then, around 2:25 in the morning, air raid sirens sounded across Los Angeles County. The city blacked out. Imagine that. Los Angeles. No streetlights. Homes dark. Businesses dark. People waking up to sirens with a Japanese submarine attack fresh in their minds. Air raid wardens rushed into position. Anti-aircraft crews were ready. Searchlights began cutting across the sky. Then at approximately 3:16 a.m., the guns opened up. Not one shot. Not a nervous soldier firing a rifle. Heavy anti-aircraft batteries, machine guns, shell after shell. The sky over Los Angeles exploded. Residents came outside despite the danger. They watched searchlights converge overhead. They heard anti-aircraft fire rolling across the city. Fragments came back down. Newspapers captured one of the most famous photographs of the event, beams of light converging into a bright patch in the night sky, while artillery fire surrounded it. The barrage continued for roughly an hour. More than 1,400 anti-aircraft shells were fired. Think about that number. 1,400. Somebody believed there was something worth shooting at. Actually, a lot of people did. Reports came in describing aircraft, balloons, objects, different numbers, different altitudes. Nobody seemed completely sure what they were looking at. American interceptor aircraft were alerted, but remained on the ground. Eventually, the firing stopped. Morning came, and everybody wanted to know the same thing. What had attacked Los Angeles? The Japanese answer was simple: nothing. Japan had not sent an air raid over Los Angeles that night. No enemy aircraft were shot down. No Japanese bombers were discovered offshore. There was no wreckage from an invading air fleet scattered across California. So what had the army just spent an hour shooting at? Now we're in the part where this story became irresistible. Some explanations pointed toward weather balloons, some toward nervous gunners interpreting smoke, explosions, and searchlight reflections as targets. Once the first guns fired, exploding shells themselves would have filled the sky with flashes and smoke. Searchlights illuminate that smoke. Someone sees movement. Another gun fires. Now you have more smoke, more explosions, more reports. A feedback loop. Fear creating evidence for more fear. And remember the timing. Pearl Harbor had happened 79 days earlier. An enemy submarine had shelled the California coast only the day before. America expected an attack. So when radar and observers suggested something might be approaching, the military reacted. Hard. The story didn't stop there. Decades later, the photograph of the searchlights became attached to UFO culture. People began arguing that the military was firing at some unknown craft. The image looks incredible, almost too perfect. One bright object, searchlights converging, explosions around it. Except photographs don't give you radar data. They don't tell you what the crews actually saw. They don't separate smoke from aircraft from balloons from shell bursts. And a dramatic photograph can turn confusion into certainty very quickly. I don't think we need aliens here. Actually, I think jumping straight to aliens makes the story less frightening. Look at what we know happened. A real enemy had attacked California one day earlier. American defenses went on alert. Los Angeles blacked out. Military batteries identified or believed they identified aerial targets. More than 1,400 rounds went into the sky. No invading aircraft were ever confirmed. That's insane. Not fake, not folklore, not a creepypasta. It happened. And somewhere inside that hour is a lesson I don't particularly like. When people are frightened enough, when everybody is expecting something to appear, Sometimes the first person who fires doesn't end the uncertainty, he multiplies it. Now everybody can see flashes. Everybody can hear explosions. Everybody knows something must be up there. Because look at how hard we're shooting at it. Kentucky, 1876. Animal tissue falls out of a clear sky, most likely vultures. Still real. West Virginia, 1897. A mother claims her murdered daughter came back to tell her what happened. The body is exhumed. The husband goes to prison. Illinois, 1944. A town believes somebody is attacking homes with gas. Police patrol the streets. State and federal authorities get involved. Nobody catches the attacker. Texas, 1957. Motorists call police from different roads after reporting strange lights and vehicle failures. Project Blue Book investigates. New Mexico, 1964. A police officer reports a strange object on the ground. Investigators examine the site. The Air Force can't confidently identify what he encountered. And Los Angeles, 1942. Sirens, blackout, searchlights, 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds. No confirmed enemy aircraft. American case like this, something that sounds completely made up until you find the newspaper, police report, or government file, leave the name below. I want cases we can verify, because I have a feeling there are a lot more of these sitting in old archives. Until next time, stay curious. And remember, sometimes the strangest part isn't what people claimed they saw. It's finding out the paperwork is real.